Cuba's electricity grid crisis is worsening, and now the story is becoming far bigger than simply blackouts on a Caribbean island. This is now turning into another geopolitical battle over power, influence and control. Large parts of Cuba have been dealing with severe electricity shortages, fuel scarcity and rolling blackouts. Hospitals, transport systems, food supply chains and everyday life for ordinary Cubans have all been heavily affected. The Cuban government blames sanctions and fuel restrictions, while critics also point towards decades of economic mismanagement and failing infrastructure. But now the situation has escalated further because other nations are openly beginning to challenge Washington over the issue. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has publicly stated that Mexico will continue sending oil to Cuba regardless of American pressure, saying Mexico will not become a tool for enforcing the US embargo. China has criticized sanctions rhetoric, while Russia has condemned what it describes as economic blackmail and collective punishment. And looking at all of this together, once again, everyone seems to be getting President DJT to do their dirty work that they wanted done for many years. America still seemingly believes it can pressure, threaten, and economically squeeze nations into submission, and that mentality increasingly is not going down well around the world. We're seeing this in the Middle East, we're seeing growing frustration across parts of South America. We're seeing countries beginning to openly say enough is enough with this constant rhetoric of dominance and control. Because let's be clear here, it's not the elites in Cuba sitting in darkness, worrying about whether their fridge works or whether they can afford basic necessities. It's ordinary people, regular citizens, families, elderly people, workers, children. And when populations are deprived of electricity, food access, fuel and stability, resentment naturally builds. Not just inside Cuba either, but globally toward the country seen to be enforcing that pressure. America needs to understand that the era of acting as the world's police and the world's bully is increasingly being challenged. This idea of we can do what we want, when we want, however we want, is no longer being quietly accepted by many nations. Because when you attempt to politically suffocate an island nation by making ordinary people suffer, many around the world are not going to see that as strength. They're going to see it as cruelty, and history usually does not look kindly on empires that relied on pressure, punishment, and economic suffering to maintain influence. Many years from now, when historians look back at the decline of American global dominance, situations like this may become major discussed examples of how coercion and pressure tactics ultimately created resentment rather than respect. This has been the JR Voice. Stay tuned for more unpacking of global headlines.